Well, Nate, it's great to see you again. We had some new questions come in, and I'm going to start with an easy one. And it is, can I sue someone if their dog bites me in Georgia?
Well, Ann, good to see you again as well. And the answer to that question is absolutely. Dog bite cases are no different than any other type of injury claim, such as, car wrecks, medical malpractice, slip and falls. If there is negligence on behalf of the dog owner or the dog keeper, if it's a situation where it's a dog sitter and there's injury sustained, then absolutely you have a claim, and some of those claims are worth filing a lawsuit on.
Well, thank you for that. And tell me, is it worth suing someone for a dog bite in Georgia? What does the law say?
It can be, but what I would encourage anybody to do who's unfortunately been, subject of a dog bite or knows someone who can is go talk to an attorney who specializes in dog bites. Some cases are absolutely worth pursuing. Some cases may not be for various reasons, but it is important to speak to somebody and go over the pros and cons to make sure that, if you have a valid claim, that you pursue that claim.
Well, here is another one. Does it matter where you are when the dog bite occurs? Like if I'm in my own yard, let's say I invited my friend over and they bring their dog. I mean, I told them they could bring their dog too. Or if it's in their yard, or even if it's in a public space, does it matter?
Yes, it does to some degree, and it matters because in determining the liability of the property owner or the dog owner, it matters where it occurs because there's different types of control that a dog owner must have over their dog. So an example would be if the dog is in your yard and should not be in your yard, then that potentially is a different theory of liability than, let's say, you're visiting a friend and you're in their house with the dog. So both can still be claims, but they have to be evaluated completely differently.
That makes sense. How about, let's say if I just approached someone's dog and I wasn't necessarily invited, what happens then if I get bit?
Still could be a claim, but there also could be a defense that you provoked the dog or that you touched the dog and did not have permission to do so, particularly if the dog is on a leash. So again, the facts matter, the details matter, and an attorney who's experienced of this would be able to give a very clear answer on fact specific scenarios.
That makes sense. Are there different kind of dog bites?
Absolutely. And in fact, we use the term dog bites, but you can actually recover even if a dog doesn't bite you. I've had cases personally where a dog hasn't actually bitten someone, but they've knocked them down. And as a result of falling, they've had concussions and broken arms. So there's a multitude of negative interactions that can occur between humans and dogs. And if it is as a result of negligence, then there's a potential for a claim to be made.
That's really interesting. And how common would you say dog bites are in the state of Georgia?
I think the most recent statistics I looked at was around 500 dog bites per year in the state of Georgia. I think that number is actually much higher. I think the vast majority of dog bites do not go reported. So it is, dogs are man's best friend. Certainly nothing to be afraid of, but dog bites do occur, and unfortunately they occur much more frequently than we would like.
That's true. That's true. What would you say is the average payout for a dog bite?
So I would say it depends. The way I evaluate a case is based off of the types of damages that you can recover, and that is your medical expenses, lost wages if you're unable to work as a result of your medical treatment or the dog bite, and then of course your pain and suffering. I have seen some statistics that show that the average payout's around $50 to $65,000. However, in my personal experience, I've seen cases much higher than that, but it's based upon the individual's specific injury, what they went through, their total medical treatment, and also calls into play how much insurance coverage is available.
Makes sense. Let me ask you, I'm looking at some more questions here. How bad does a dog bite have to be before you can actually sue?
Well, the answer is it can be minimal. Again, in order to have a valid claim in Georgia, there has to be negligence on behalf of the dog owner, and there has to be some injury suffered. So that could be something as simple as a scratch, and that could be something as catastrophic as bites that result in scarring that need plastic surgery to remediate. So again, if you unfortunately are ever bitten by a dog or know someone that has, regardless of how severe or how small the injury may seem, I would encourage them to speak to an attorney about their options.
Here is an interesting question on dog bites. What if the dog bites you more than once?
So, if the dog bites you on more than one occasion, that opens up the potential for what we refer to as punitive damages. So
Mhm.
we've talked about damages such as your medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering. We refer to those as compensatory damages because they're compensating you for things you've lost. If in the unfortunate event a dog bites you and then sometime later the dog owner did not take corrective action and the dog bites you again, then punitive damages might be warranted. And those type of damages are there to punish or deter the dog owner from allowing it to happen even another time, a third time.
And punitive meaning basically a punishment.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. It's a really interesting question, and it's a concern of mine too, because there's a lot of people who love their dogs and love dogs in general. And what does the law state about will a dog be put down if it bites a person?
So a dog will not be required to be put down just because it has bitten someone and that has resulted in a claim. In fact, if you make a claim based on a dog bite, you're not necessarily sealing the fate of that dog. The decisions whether or not to put a dog down are usually going to lie with your city or your county's animal control department. And usually by the time you reach the point that a dog is being considered to be euthanized, it has demonstrated a repeated past of being a vicious animal.
Yeah, and we certainly don't want that to happen for
Exactly.
the dog to bite other people.
Yeah.
Another really good question that someone sent our way. How do I prove that I've been bitten by a certain dog? Let's say I'm just walking along and no one sees it. I have no witness, but it happened to me, and here's the dog.
So the best thing you can do if you find yourself in that unfortunate situation is number one, get away from the dog. Try to stop the attack as quickly as possible, and then call 911. Document if you need medical assistance, have 911 send for an ambulance. Usually, most dog bites involve a police report, so your local law enforcement agency will come and take a report. Sometimes they'll send out animal control, and I would be sure to document after you have made the determination that you're medically okay to do so. I would notify local law enforcement or animal control and have them open a case investigation about it.
Sounds good. How would a dog owner be negligent from a dog bite?
So, a dog owner, generally speaking, is only negligent when their dog bites someone and that dog is deemed to have vicious propensities. And sometimes that's referred to as the one bite rule. So, if a dog has bitten someone before, then the dog owner is presumed to have actual knowledge that their dog is potentially vicious. The other way that you prove vicious propensities is if there is a local county or city ordinance that requires the dog to be on a leash when outside of the dog owner's property. And if the dog owner violates the leash law and the dog is running at large, by law, the dog is deemed to have vicious propensities.
Gotcha. Where would someone find the laws for regarding dogs? If they
So,
have to be on a leash or not?
that's a very good question. So Georgia, to my knowledge, does not have a statewide leash law. You would want to check in your local city or county's ordinances to see what law pertains to your particular area. Another resource would be a telephone call to animal control and say, hey, I live at this address within this county. What are my rights and responsibilities as it pertains to my dog being on a leash?
How would you advise people who just come up upon a dog? Should they immediately call animal control? Is that one of your suggestions?
So if you're in a public space and you see a dog and you have the impression that the dog does not have an owner or is there unoccupied, both for the dog's benefit and other members of the public, yes, I would encourage anyone to call animal control, local law enforcement, and at least make a report that the dog is out there because that certainly could prevent a negative interaction between the dog and someone else.
Is this something where you would advise maybe walkers? Because I've come across people that are like, you should carry a stick to maybe walk with a stick or something that gives you some sort of protection. even if you're walking with your dog?
Absolutely. A lot of dog bites that I have seen in the past actually occur not because the dog is wanting to attack the person, but the dog is wanting to attack the person who's walking their own dog. And the dogs get into an argument, and then the human intervenes, and then the human in the scuffle gets bitten. So if you're
Right.
walking your dog, be on alert. If you see a dog in the distance, particularly without someone watching after it, it's better just to turn and go the other way. Try to remove yourself from the situation and don't engage if at all possible.
Great advice. Another great question. What if somebody else's dog bites my dog and my dog's injured?
That is a great question. So your dog, you have a claim. Um, Unlike you, if you got bitten, your dog does not have an injury claim per se. We all love our pets. I love my pets. I'm sure you do as well, but our pets don't have a personal injury claim as humans do. By the law, they are our property. So technically, you have a property damage claim. And, that claim could entail vet bills, immunizations, any kind of medical expense as it pertains to your dog. But in terms of, emotional distress to you or emotional distress to your dog's not going to recover that. There could be an argument that you would have emotional distress if you got somehow involved in the scuffle with the two dogs, but as a general rule, your dog's claim is going to be limited to its medical expenses.
Quite interesting. Thank you. Okay. Well, we all want to be responsible dog owners and we hope that our dogs won't bite another person. But what is my liability if my dog does end up biting somebody?
So it could vastly depend on the circumstances of the bite, but what I would encourage you to do is one, notify your insurance carrier, whether that be if you're renting, that would be your renter's insurance. If you have a personal umbrella policy, notify them. Or in turn, if you were the landlord renting to someone, you would want to notify your either commercial policy or your homeowner's policy to make sure that they are aware of the claim. They're going to be investigating the claim and determining whether or not you have any liability and preparing for your defense.
Okay, well, that leads me to another question. Let's say I'm renting and I've asked the landowner, the property owner, to fix a fence. I've got a hole in my fence and my dog keeps on going through, and I've called them numerous times and they just don't take care of it. And suddenly my dog ends up biting somebody because of the hole in the fence. Where's the liability there?
So the liability could be on both. There would be an argument from the victim that the liability could be on you as the dog owner, but there also could be an argument that the liability would be on the landlord because the landlord was aware of a defect in the property, that being the holes in the fence, was on notice of that, was aware that the dog was getting out, and failed to take reasonable action to repair the holes in the fence. And that is the most common way we see landlords become liable for dog bite type cases is they're aware of an issue not with the dog but with the property that leads to the dog getting out and they fail to take action when it's their responsibility to repair the property.
So basically, see something, say something, and then do something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you say that most Macon dog owners are pretty responsible, at least in that area?
Yes, I would tend to agree with that. It largely depends on the area. If I see one dog walking on the side of the street that I look like it appears to not have a home, I think that's one dog too many, right? And
Yeah.
I know that dog shelters are running out of space and maybe resources and things, but I would say Macon as a whole does a pretty good job. And we do unfortunately see cases come out of Macon-Bibb County, but not as many as I see in other areas.
And that brings up a question for me. Again, it's kind of back to carrying a big stick or your walking stick for some sort of protection. Is there something that you recommend? I mean, would pepper spray work to stop a dog? That's maybe approaching kind of aggressively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think pepper spray would be effective. I mean, I know a dog is not a bear, but they make bear spray that's obviously designed for bears that I think would work just fine on a dog. I think the concern with those is if you're going to carry something like that and with the intent of using it, really understand it, really think about how you're going to use it, You certainly don't want to deploy, pepper spray or bear spray in a way that it somehow blows back on you, So
Sure.
if you're going to, whatever your mode of self defense is going to be, don't just get it and say, okay, I'm protected. Really spend some time with what it is, how you should use it. Take some training courses if you can, and that would probably lead to a much better outcome.
Absolutely.